Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Adventure Paradox podcast. We have a new guest here with us today. I'm very excited to welcome someone from Down Under. If you're in New Zealand, you're still down under. Am I right, Christopher?
We are right, although I think Aussies might beg to differ.
There's always that thing, right? With the neighbors, always a little bit of that thing. Anyways, those who might not know Christopher, Christopher Hill is the founder of luxury philanthropic travel brands, Hands Up Holidays, and Impact Destinations. And he serves his majority US based clients from New Zealand, where he lives with his wife, two boys, and dog. Tell me what kind of dog you have.
We have a Labradoodle.
So fun.
She turns 2 this month. Her name is Zola.
How has she changed your life?
Oh gosh. The thing that springs to mind is it forces me to get some exercise. So I'm fresh from walking this morning out to the Saturday morning markets. It forces a bit of fitness for
Yeah,
sure.
totally. And structure throughout your day, kind of reminding us that we have these natural needs, just like animals have natural needs of, oh, get up and go, get out, sniff, do these different things, and then come home and take a nap. They may get to nap more than we do. Still, I'd love to hear more about an explanation. We have actually had some other guests who have talked about philanthropic travel, but because you have a philanthropic travel brand, could we start there? Could you define that, please, for someone who might not know what that is?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I define philanthropic travel is where your funds, your money, is used to make a difference in the
Mm,
destination that you're traveling to, and it's intentional. So obviously, any pretty much any trip will make a difference and be of impact.
mhm.
Unfortunately, sometimes that can be negative, but we'll push that to the side for the time being. But so this is really about being intentional, and so to flesh that out, as you've touched on, we have two different brands. One is what I would describe as a pure philanthropic travel brand, and what I mean by that is that it's the funds that our clients bring, which will enable the experts in that destination to do what they do best,
Mm,
and then also unlock a unique experience for the traveler. So, for example, say on a safari day in South Africa, you can fund a rhino relocation from a reserve that's facing a lot of poaching to a better protected reserve in Botswana. And the unique experience that unlocks is that you actually get to participate in it. So this is where you actually go in the helicopter with the veterinarian while he's darting the rhino, and then land, spend some time with a sedated rhino before helping to get it lifted onto the container and lifted off to Botswana. Or another one that's actually not on our site yet, and so it's not yet officially live, so you're getting a little sneak preview of it, is on a trip to Thailand, you can fund the raid of a brothel that's employing sex trafficked underage girls,
wow.
and actually that the raid and that their rescue, and so that's funding the experts to do that. But and the unique experience you get as a traveler is actually just to spend some time with the people doing the raid, both before and afterwards, to hear how they're planning it and then hear how it went.
Wow. Wow, that just completely blows my mind. And
Yeah.
I'm just so touched by that work because I could see how, actually sending clients on a raid when they don't, safety, all those different things. But to be part of making sure good is happening. And one of the things that came up as you were talking about, any travel will make a difference, right? Good or bad, we can talk about that, right? I live in a tourist destination town right outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So, there are always like different opinions from the locals of the tourists. I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a lot of tourism, right? So it's interesting, but this idea that you can really, I'm thinking about vote with your dollars, but you can travel with your dollars. Like you can be aware of some of the issues happening in the places where you're going and make a really beautiful difference and have an up close and personal experience processing the work you helped make happen on the front and the back in a safe and secure way. That is amazing, Christopher. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty fun.
So you haven't quite done that yet, but it's maybe in the works, it sounds like. Where did that idea come from? Or did it, like, how did this kind of come together? Did these things come together organically? I'm just curious how something like that comes into being.
That particular idea of the raids.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm on the board of a charity that does those raids, and and so and so part of our role, certainly here in New Zealand, is a fundraising role, and I got thinking, well, why not actually combine the two, and so as I say, we're in these talks right now to finalize that and go live with it. But yeah, so that's how it came about. I've been I'm on the board of the child trafficking charity.
Wow. Thank you for your work and dedication to that because it's a really, really important space. I have two daughters, so it's
Mm.
whew.
Yeah,
But boys or girls, I mean, there's just a real need for that work in the world right now.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, can you go back a little bit to the distinction between your two different brands, a little bit
Yeah.
more about that?
Yeah, sure. So we've, I think, explained impact destinations, and then the other one is Hands Up Holidays. And the difference between the two really is that with Hands Up Holidays, you actually do roll up your sleeves and get involved in a project. So it's what I describe. It's still philanthropic travel, but I describe it as philanthro volunteering travel. And and to expand that a little bit, what I mean is that it's still the funds that you bring, which is the main benefit to the project. So you're actually enabling the project to come into existence through the funding. So paying for the materials, paying for local experts to actually, in the case of say a house building, to actually to do most of the work and certainly do the tricky parts when the client's there and supervise them and and so the clients come and still participate in it, but say if it is say a house, it's like doing the last few days of the build, so the finishing touches, and so you still get the magic. The benefit that the clients get is the interaction with the local people and the opportunity to engage with them and share stories and gain
Mm,
insights into their lives, and and then have that feeling of satisfaction of finishing it and handing it over to the family, as I say, if it's a house being built. And
wow.
in this, in what applies to both is that it's still the idea is it's still a vacation for you. And so you might spend, as I say, 3 or 4 days doing that out of a 8 or 10 day or however long you choose for the vacation to be. And so the rest of the time is more conventional vacation or sightseeing as you choose. Each trip is customized.
Got it. I'm wondering in that customization, luxury has a big buzz, right? Luxury travel, luxury anything. How do you define luxury, and is there like a sliding scale with your clients about their definition of luxury and what they do or
Mm.
don't really think is important?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think our definition of luxury is pretty much what springs to mind. It's mostly manifest in the accommodation, in the hotels and lodges that people stay at. And so, when people think luxury, they can think uh, Four Seasons or Aman or Six Senses. I mean, the last two are smaller brands, but Ritz-Carlton, Waldorf Astoria could be
Yeah,
those ones as well. I guess our primary twist on it is a focus on sustainable luxury and eco luxury, and so that's where we seek out the properties that are still at that level of the Ritz-Carltons and so on, but they take sustainability seriously. So, and this can be manifest in their design of their hotels, the use of the materials that we use in the construction, maybe recycled materials, reclaimed materials. It could be in their electricity generation. Perhaps they're using solar, or some are using hydro or wind generation to generate electricity. can also be in, we also look at their employment practices in terms of the percentage of their staff that are employed from the local community. And we also, look for not only uh, the the housekeeping staff, but also management, and even a big tick is where there's community ownership of the venture. As I say, that's a big tick, and and that's really part of our sort of holistic approach to a trip, in that it's not just the give back part that we seek to be positive about. It's also, as I say, the accommodation, it's the restaurants as well. We seek out those that source their ingredients locally and use organic ingredients. And where possible, we use environmentally sustainable vehicles, such as electric vehicles. And part of our philosophy as well is to employ local guides in
Mm,
all our destinations. So the luxury, yeah. So our twist on the luxury part is, as I mentioned, the accommodation primarily. It is also in the dining, um, and all the touch points. So the transport we touched on would be where it's available, say Tesla vehicles. Um, and then as well, I mean, is there a sliding scale? Yes, there absolutely is. Um, but that can be in the, as you know, a lot of, or most hotels and lodges will have different room categories.
mm,
So
mm.
you can go up in that way. And then it can be in terms of the experiences um, that we offer. For instance, um, they're not necessarily luxury experiences, but they are high price point experiences, and certainly once in a lifetime experiences, which can be also in that I define as in that ballpark of luxury. So it could be things like um, uh, having dinner with Nelson Mandela's former bodyguard, for example. Or it could be hiring out the Sistine Chapel for your exclusive use. Um, that sort of thing is within that rubric of luxury also.
Wow. Very interesting. I'm thinking about like hiring out the Sistine Chapel for exclusive use or these incredible guests and how you would share that. I'm guessing, do you have a travel advisor who's like working with the guest on, okay, while you're in Italy, we know you want to do these things. Also, a couple other options. Like, how do you even kind of broach a, would you like to meet Nelson Mandela's bodyguard? Like, how does that come up, with these sort of, I love these options. And I also really want to reflect back before we answer that question, because I do think it's important, especially for someone who might be thinking about working with you. But uh, employing local guides, oh, thank you. And also this idea of eco luxury. I hadn't caught that from your brand description and how important I think that really is because, again, I live in a place where I know all these brands you're talking about, and they're all here. And I also know who the eco-friendly ones are and what they're doing and why that's so important. But this other level, it's making me think about something I learned. I did a graduate program in sustainable business and
Mm,
thinking about the quadruple bottom line, which is that it's not just good for business, that's the bottom line, right? But that it's also good for the planet, that it's good for the community. And then the last one is that it's good just sort of like for the spirit of the universe, like something even bigger than like when you put all of those three things together, is it
yeah,
still good?
yeah, yeah.
And it feels like you've done so much work to create an experience that is really meeting all four of those.
That's very much our ethos. Yeah.
Incredible. So how does it work? Are you like talking one-on-one? Are you doing most of the work? You have a couple travel advisors. How does it work for someone to like learn about these sort of other really interesting things? And then I want to bring it back to family. But yeah, just from the high level, how
Sure.
does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I handle every inquiry, and as we touched on, every trip is customized.
Mm,
And yeah, I'm so passionate about this that it's what I love to do is crafting these itineraries for our clients. So yeah, I handle every single one. And basically the the most typical way that we get an inquiry is through our website.
mhm,
And there are like plan my trip buttons on each of the two different websites. And that'll take a potential client to a page where there are trying to gather as much information as possible
mm,
about the client and their interests. And so it includes things like, destinations of interest, length of time, time of year of travel, number of people, the way you want to help. And then there's also a pretty comprehensive just tick box exercise in terms of the things that interest you. And
mm.
so one of them, you touched on Nelson Mandela's bodyguard. One of them is around meeting with prominent local people. So if that box is ticked, then that'll lead into, oh, if they and then if they've also ticked South Africa, then that would lead into that conversation. Um, and then and then another part of the category is their budget. And so I can't even remember exactly the categories, but there's sort of different bands. And if someone selects one of the higher bands and Italy's of interest, then it would logically flow to speak about um, hiring out, visiting the Sistine Chapel on an exclusive basis. But if their budget is at the lower band, then I probably wouldn't mention it.
Got it. Totally makes sense. Okay, back to the family now, because I'm guessing you've got the person on the website who's filling it out. Probably mom. Could be dad, though. Probably an
Generally,
adult.
mum. Yep.
Hopefully an adult. But I'm guessing generally mom is kind of like thinking about the vacation and what are we going to do and, what do we want to spend and what are the things that would make it good. And a piece of that is the whole picture of these are the ages of my children. This is what they will and won't be up for. My husband and I want to go do a balloon ride, but the kids, there's no way 5 a.m. is going to be fun for them. Is there a babysitter option? Is there a, on site? What are the different options for that? If I bring someone, what are the options for that? I'd love to hear more about how you cater to family travel specifically with all of these incredible things you have going. Because kids at different ages might think some of those things are more or less fun. I'd love to
Yeah,
hear how you
definitely.
work with that.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a little bit of the context. Uh, when I first set up we've described two brands. The Impact Destinations is much more recent, but I launched Hands Up Holidays back in 2006. And at that point, I had young professionals in mind as our main audience, sort of 25 to 35-year-olds, people who are cash rich, time poor, still wanted to have a great vacation and make a difference.
Mm,
And however, right from the get-go, we were getting bookings from families, and families weren't on my radar at all
mm,
when I was setting this up. Um, I Yeah, it didn't even occur to me that families would want to be traveling with us. I didn't have kids of my own at the time, and so I'd ask these clients of families that were booking, "Why are you booking with us?" And they'd say things like, our kids come from pretty privileged backgrounds, and we want them really to appreciate just how fortunate they are. Or
mm,
they'd say, we're looking for a great family bonding experience, and this really nails it for us.
mm,
And that resonated with me. It made a lot of sense. And even more so now that I do have children of my own. And so in a fairly short space of time, we decided to focus the Hands Up Holidays brand on the family audience. Impact Destinations is not family focused at all, but Hands Up Holidays is. And so yeah, it comes back to you're 100% right that, um, customizing a trip for a family, you've got, as many different preferences as you have kids, if not more. um, and so it's really a case of encouraging our clients to consult with their kids, and then even get on a call with the whole family and brainstorm what the ideas would look like. Um, and pretty much inevitably there's some sort of compromise involved. And so it's can be a case of finding activities that appeal to everybody is the pinnacle, but it might be that some at least we strive to find one thing that appeals to each person
Mm.
on the trip, and so that they get their input on at least one aspect of it. But as you say, there can be things that the children don't want to participate in, and you touched on is there childcare. We certainly would then go on to sourcing those properties where childcare is available, and it also comes up in the volunteering itself. Like, um, some of our projects definitely aren't suitable for very young kids.
Yeah.
So then it comes back to our experience and knowledge of that project and the community, and to be able to say, yeah, they're probably too young to get involved in the building component, but there's just we can bring in a babysitter, but really they're more just keeping an eye out for them, and they're going to be focusing on just your kids are just going to focus on playing with the local kids and getting that interaction and immersion that way. So
Totally.
we just draw on that knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, and meet them at the age that they're at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so generally speaking, we focus, and this is definitely not a hard and fast rules, but more typically it's up to the age of 5. They can potentially come. We would bring in external supervision, and as I said, the focus would be on just play and
Yeah,
interaction. And then
yeah.
from 5 to 12, that can still apply if it's a community-based project. But we also, if they're open to it, love to encourage our wildlife conservation projects,
Mhm.
because in those ages they can still get involved with, say if it's at a animal rescue and rehabilitation center, with preparing the meals for monkeys and parrots, say in Costa Rica, helping maintain their enclosures, creating enrichments to simulate the animals, and then just learning a lot with the vet as he does his rounds, learning an enormous amount about the animals. So that the focus is a combination of education and service with those, but children of that age can certainly get involved with those. And then typically we recommend for teenagers, that's around the age where they can get involved in a hands-on way themselves in those community-focused building projects.
Mm, very cool. Oh my gosh, I'm loving this so much. I'm curious, I'm guessing you have like some main squeezes. You mentioned Costa Rica, you've talked about, I'm guessing you have certain countries, you've got lots of contacts there, you've worked with them, you like working with them, that's sort of your bread and butter. I'm curious though, when there are big world events. Right now, I'm thinking some of our team members are in the Philippines, and one of them
Mhm.
has been without electricity and water for 4 days, right? With this
Yeah.
typhoon. Do you respond like to needs like that, or are your trips sort of paced out a little more? I'm just curious about that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a great question. We're not frontline help
Right.
because well, I'll explain. There's a twist on what I just said, though. So not frontline help, because that tends to require your expertise
Hmm.
and yeah, in terms of emergency expertise.
Yeah,
And so we are typically, however, for instance, you mentioned the Philippines. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding work to do there, and
exactly.
so that's where we can come in, in the longer aftermath, not the
Hmm.
immediate aftermath.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
having said that, we do have a client that is going out to Cebu in the Philippines in just over a week.
Wow.
And it's specifically to look at how, and that's more in the pure philanthropic model, actually. So,
Hmm.
so where they can use their funding to make the impact. And so
Hmm.
that does happen. Um, So that would be for more, I guess, strictly speaking, on an impact destination style trip than the hands up trip. Um, Appreciating the difference there. Um, and so, another example would be we offer in in Slovakia and Hungary opportunities to help with Ukrainian refugees who are placed there. Typically, that's around helping at daycare centers that are set up for the children of the refugees. So we don't have people in Ukraine,
Right.
at that front line, but in the wider repercussions of the conflict there, we do get involved. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, I'm just blown away by this work that you're doing, and I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, but
Yeah.
there are a couple things we still haven't really touched on, which is it seems like we've touched on transformation because inevitably with an experience like this, we've definitely touched on meaningful family travel and even leaving a legacy through travel because these are experiences that are not, quote, just Disneyland, right? I'd love to get a little bit more into the depth. One of the things we talked about before we started recording is how divisive the world is right now. And that often the experience of cultural immersion into an experience of something that might not be what you're used to at home, right? Is a way of really bringing us closer together in our humanity, finding that universal language and common ground. Could you speak on that a little? Maybe some experiences or things you've seen through this work, bringing people together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll give a couple of examples. One, and this is really my origin story or the origin story for what became Hands Up Holidays was we're heading back to South Africa actually. It's a trip I took there in 2002. And on that trip, in addition to going on safari and exploring the wonders of Cape Town and the garden route and the winelands, I also helped to build a house for a family in one of the township slum areas just outside of Cape Town. And it was here that experience really added two extra dimensions to me for travel, beyond what I'd experienced. And I'd traveled quite a bit prior to
Mm.
that. Uh, Firstly, and we've touched on this, I actually, got to get immersed into another culture. I got to hear their stories of the people we were, well, really the whole community, well, not the whole community, but a good portion of the community, including the family that the house was being built for, and heard their stories, shared laughs with them, and and secondly, it felt great to actually make a difference in the lives of the family that we were building alongside. But speaking, and so it changed my life in a nutshell, and got me thinking. Well, I was working in investment banking at the time in London, and I thought, well, I've learned some good business skills. Why don't I put these into something I'd find more meaningful and fulfilling, and make it easy for others to have similar experiences to what I've just had? And so that was, as I say, the birthing of what became Hands Up Holidays. But speaking to what you just you know referred to, it was the I for me, yeah, up until that point, it was viewing or going to a destination and viewing it from a tour bus, so to speak,
Mm. Hmm.
without getting that level of engagement. And I haven't looked back from there. That was my first experience of that. But it's there's a litany of other examples where it's just furthered my love for doing this because it does bring about a appreciation for other cultures. And I think there can be a lot of, in the current climate, a lot of othering, of
Mm.
people. And
Mm.
this, you can't other someone actually uh, that you've actually engaged with, and you've discovered their humanity and discovered that there's so much more in common than separates us. And so for me, it's a hugely powerful aspect of what we do. And so thinking around, another example outside of my own personal experiences. One quick story I'll share, which I think speaks to this as well, is a family that traveled with us to Morocco, and they were building or helping build a library in a rural school about 45 minutes outside of Marrakesh. And they did the trip, and to all intents and purposes, it was, a great trip, but I didn't dwell on it beyond that until Christmas time came, and they got in touch and said, "You won't believe it. Our kids said that they don't want their gifts this year. They want to send their gifts to the children that they were interacting with at the school."
Mm, mm.
And I just, yeah, loved that, melted, and thought, yeah, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Such a good story. Oh, like a mic drop right there. You know, as you were talking about being, I think you said an investment banker in London, you reminded me of a book I picked up when I was traveling called Leaving Microsoft to Change the World. Do you know this
Yes,
book?
yes, I do. Yes, sure.
You
It's
didn't
on
write
board, I
it,
think.
right? Okay, just checking. I'm gonna have to add that guy to my list to reach out to. Um, but I just loved how profound his own personal awakening of what matters and what it's really all about. And then to pass that on to our children. It's not about the 700 doll house or all the things, the stuff, and
Yeah, yeah,
having humility, recognizing not everybody has all of this stuff, you know. Something I've been working on with my kids lately is like, and they're almost 8 and 10, but gratitude for really basic things. Like, we got a roof over our head tonight. We're gonna have warm food. Like, we've got homework we get to do for a school we get to go to. And it can be hard to have perspective when you haven't really seen that not everybody has that, right?
totally. Yeah.
And I think there's also a tenderness. And so I'd love to hear you speak on this as we kind of wrap up around the need is great and do we greatly meet the need? And at certain ages you can meet it in certain ways. And I think the same is true at certain seasons of your life, you're going to have a bigger capacity to serve. But let's say that a sudden loss in the family happens and you're now actually grieving and showing up to build houses and your heart is just, broken open in a different way. I
Mm.
just love to hear you speak on how you see the needs of the world as people are going through, different ages, different life experiences in the work that you've seen.
Yeah, well, um, another story that springs to mind that is actually uh, it resurfaced again online. It was actually a couple of actors, or actor and actress, depending how you define it, from the UK that they lost their baby, newborn baby, and so they were obviously
Oh,
grieving,
mm.
and they were referred to us, and so they traveled with us, and yeah, found it to be an incredibly healing experience to actually to whilst they were grieving to find in themselves to give and help others. And And so it came up just a month or two ago. They were re-interviewed. That the wife was re-interviewed by one of the the big publications in the UK, and she still brought this up about her experience of traveling with us as being very healing for her. I can send you the link to that story if you'd like to see it. Um,
Oh yeah, I'm so moved and I would love to see it. And I know people
yeah,
are definitely going to want to work with you. So can you please tell us how they can find you? We'll have it all in the show notes, but yeah, I'm really moved by that story. And it doesn't surprise
yeah,
me
it
either.
was yeah incredibly powerful. Well, yeah, the best way is probably through our websites. As I mentioned, any inquiry, if either through Contact Us or Plan My Trip, will come to me personally, and I personally look after every inquiry. And so the websites are handsupholidays.com and impactdestinations.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I feel like you had one more story you were about to tell. If you want to tell it, you were saying two came to mind. Go for it.
Uh yeah, okay. One with still on sort of Africa theme, really, but there was a client of ours. It was a solo traveler, actually, a woman who had just recently retired. So I think she's about 65 years old. Hadn't been to Africa before, hadn't really traveled very much before, so required a bit more hand holding than usual. And that's sort of leading up to the trip and during the trip. And she went to Kenya, and as I say, quite a sort of nervous traveler. Uh, and again, the trip went really well. But again, I didn't really massively dwell on it beyond the fact that she told me really, I kind of pretty much on her way, leaving Kenya. Actually, I've rebooked to fly back to Kenya, like on the next flight back, and then she had booked her own apartment and rented her own car, and she was driving around Nairobi on her own, and so she gathered this whole new lease of life and confidence after traveling with us. We didn't really, that whole next part was just all her. And she spent the next 3 months actually at this project helping. So um,
Amazing.
yeah, it's another little sweet little story as well of
I feel
transformation.
like that story is a reminder that the work you were doing is literally changing the trajectory of people's lives, and not just the traveler, but the ripple effect of all those they meet. So, hats off to you, sir, and your work. Thank you so much. You guys go check this out. Tell your friends. Look at your next vacation a little differently. How could you use whatever you choose to do for good in the world? Thank you all. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.